to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and listen to the discussion, but there's generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings held twice monthly. I see we have 4 commissioners. Have we heard from Commissioner Bangs or Commissioner Webb, excuse me? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to the agenda review. You see the rolling agenda in front of us going all the way through January. Any comments, questions?
Chair Quayla, if I might.
County Manager.
Chair Quayla, members of the board, just wanted to note that we did add the potential of 2 ordinance hearings for November 13th and for December 11th for the transient lodging tax. So it's obviously the 13th is going to be a full ordinance day, as you can see, with a lot of second hearings that will start on October 23rd. So
Yes, and thank you for putting that on the agenda, County Manager. Any other comments, questions? If none, we'll go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is the Clatsop Behavioral Health Care Semi-Annual Update. I see we have Shira Marilla, Interim Executive Director for Clatsop Behavioral Health, and Amy Baker, our Executive Director for Clatsop Behavioral Health, both joining us. Welcome to both of you. I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chair Quayla and members of the Clatsop County Board of Commissioners. This is my last biannual presentation to you all. I know you're going to miss those terribly. I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce you to Shira Marilla, who is the Interim Executive Director, who is stepping in for me. And I was hoping, Shira, you might be willing to introduce yourself a little bit here to the Board of County Commissioners.
Sure, happy to. So I've been doing these semi-annual presentations with Amy in my role as Deputy Director for the last several years, I think. And so now I'm introducing myself as the Interim Executive Director. Some of you may not know that I've been with the organization for over 8 years and served in several different capacities, primarily overseeing clinical operations and then all operations in my role as Deputy Director. I'm also an Astoria local, born and raised, born at CMH. I let our board of directors also know that I have really deep roots in this community. My grandfather was the principal of Astoria High School. My grandmother worked at the Chamber of Commerce and the Maritime Museum. And I have several aunt and uncles who have served in different educational settings throughout the county. So serving this community is sort of a family tradition. And I'm just really honored to be here and having the opportunity to try to step into Amy's big shoes. But feeling really positive about this transition and the state of the organization, and have a lot of good things to come in the future. So happy to be here and happy to provide some updates on a couple of our programs. Did you want me to do that, Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Shira. We really appreciate, and you've been making presentations periodically to the board and have always appreciated that. So again, welcome and congratulations on your new position, and congratulations to you, Director Baker, the new Behavioral Health Initiative Director for the state, appointed by Governor Kotek. So huge opportunity for you, and congratulations on that appointment.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yes, Shira, if you would cover your items.
Sure. So I wanted to start with Child and Family Services, and just kind of start by acknowledging that, as I'm sure you all know, we're in a workforce crisis in our state as far as behavioral health providers. And, you know, while CBH has certainly experienced some of that, our vacancy rate is actually really low compared to a lot of the other organizations across the state. It's at 5%. We only budget for 4%. So that's pretty close to where we plan to be, and is actually one of the lowest vacancy rates that we've seen in quite some time. Amy and I have both done an incredible amount of work over the last many years, implementing new strategies to improve retention and recruitment and pipeline development. And she and I will continue to work on the governor's behavioral health initiative, which is workforce recruitment, retention, and pipeline development. So we're doing pretty well here at CBH. Our child and family program is nearly fully staffed. We were there, and then one of our case managers had to step away to take care of a family member, which is always an understandable reason to leave. So that team has been running activity groups for teenagers and kids throughout the county throughout the summer. They had bowling events, and they did something at Gizmos, and they did bubbles on the beach, and just developmentally appropriate activities. They've been really, really well attended. And they're looking to actually open those to be insurance blind. And so anybody can attend those going forward, regardless of whether or not they're actually an active client, and sort of use that as an engagement opportunity. Working with the schools also to potentially partner with them in expanding some of those groups. We provide nurturing parenting, which is parenting curriculum. We've been doing that for the last almost 9 years, and that is going strong and is always really well attended. We have a fully staffed intensive in-home behavioral health therapy team, which we're proud of, because that's a program that is really hard to staff in other organizations across the state. So that's a program that's available to acute young people who just need more intensive services in an in-home setting to try to reduce admits to higher levels of care and utilization of the emergency departments. We're training another therapist in PCIT, which is parent-child interaction therapy, a really cool evidence-based program. We have a clinician in every school across the county, which is something that we haven't always been able to say. And so we're really excited to have those positions staffed as well. And then we added a case manager just to be available to all. Anyone enrolled in the child and family department has now immediate access to a case manager. And I think I'll stop there. Are there questions about any of that?
I see a couple here, Commissioner Bangs, and then Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Bangs.
I just want to say in the last year, I've seen exponential growth in the services available to our youth in our community, and it is amazing. I am so excited to hear about all of the youth kind of group opportunities that are being made available. And as soon as that becomes insurance blind, I would love to be able to share that with, like, social media, along with the county support and so on and so forth. So if you could just, when that happens, let us know. And I would love to share and celebrate that because I will just say I got a bill in the mail after insurance here recently with my husband and I, and there's still so much that needs to be done with our insurance companies because that is such, I can see how preventative a type of insurance is to receiving proper care for your child. And so I love that the county and that you through the county is going this direction because it's unattainable to others if we're dependent only on insurance. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Courtney.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Well, I'm interested in hearing about Jewel's School because I know there have been some issues out there. So if you could just hone in on that particular school, please.
Sure. So Jewel, I guess, is the exception. Jewel opened a school-based health center, which is great for them. And they also chose to hire a different organization to provide their behavioral health services, who I think has more capacity to be there on site regularly. We have been trying to meet that need for Jewel. As you know, it's quite far away. And just kind of having some challenges in having enough referrals to sort of like justify the clinical time that they were asking for. I can't send a clinician to Jewel if they're only going to see 2 kids in person. And so we just kind of went round and round. And so that was the direction that they chose to go. We are still available as a treatment resource, of course, to kids and families in the Jewel area, especially if they need higher levels of care, if they need wraparound, if they need intensive in-home behavioral health therapy, but we don't have a clinician located in their school-based health center.
Great, that's very useful. And I do appreciate very much dealing with youth. I wonder, I hear also in that mid-county area, a lot of issues with substance abuse and with, I would call them problem properties. Amy's nodding her head. I think for years this has been an issue. Can you help me understand, I want to say the challenges and whatever successes you've had in dealing with that adult population?
With the adult population struggling with substance use?
And, well, the phrase meth alley has been used to describe a certain particular part of that Central County area. Amy's nodding. I think there have been a lot of conferences about that. So
I think, sorry if I could just jump in here really quick. Like,
Yeah.
I think youth substance use is definitely a challenge in Clatsop County. And I think what we have seen, maybe partially due to the pandemic and partially due to Measure 110, is fewer MIPs happening for youth. And I think some of that has to do with, like, historically, in order to get a youth into substance use treatment, somebody has to be pushing for that to happen. And so if you don't have a parent who's like pushing to get somebody into treatment, that makes it really tricky. Or if you don't have the Kelly Broughton's shop, the juvenile justice department pushing, we don't always get referrals. And so largely right now, our kid substance use treatment program is really based on people voluntarily seeking treatment.
I see
I don't
Commissioner
know.
Banks.
I just had a follow-up question to the Measure 110. So when there were amendments made to that measure, was the youth addressed so that potentially we don't have that crack for them to fall through? Because I know that the process of the MIP is also led to getting treatment or getting help. So I just didn't know if we had that addressed.
Commissioner Bangs, it didn't change. Like, the process for getting youth into treatment has always been the same, that if there's a law enforcement referral, that goes to juvenile justice, and then they handle it from there in terms of all the processes, and that could include a treatment referral to Clatsop Behavioral Health Care. And so I don't think Measure 110 changed that per se, other than perhaps increased sense of permissiveness around substance use. But also, I think the pandemic, I believe, created more isolation for youth and probably frequently caused them to use at home and less so in public where they might get caught.
And I see that Kelly Bratton is joining us. Kelly, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Amy is correct. As most people have heard me say, and many say, when 110 was implemented or even initially discussed, there was very little, if any, discussion about the impact on the youth population. It's been frustrating not only for juvenile departments across the state, but also law enforcement as well. Law enforcement and the juvenile departments were the #1 referral source for substance use treatment in the state. And when 110 went through, we saw a significant reduction. Sped the process up prior to, where we had kids isolating, using in private. And there's fewer chances for police contact. And so not only that, you saw a complete decimation of residential providers because there's no referral source, right? So there's no revenue. And so we've seen issues with not only law enforcement not really wanting to make that contact, because if there's nothing to cite, then why make the contact? We're encouraging them to do that. We also would like to see the schools be more involved, and utilizing their law enforcement contacts, not because we want to be punitive, but because we are the main conduit to services. We are a great conduit to services. Our goal is to connect kids to CVH or a drug and alcohol or SUD provider. And if we're not taking those opportunities seriously, we're willing to look under the rock, so to speak, and we're willing to point them to CVH, and they're really good at looking under the rock and trying to figure out what exactly is the driver of the use, right? And ultimately, a dollar spent in the juvenile system is worth far more than in the adult system, and we have known that for decades, and we want to continue to utilize these services instead of waiting for them to escalate into the adult system.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kelly Bratton, our Juvenile Services Director. Commissioner Banks has another question. I do want to remind folks we have a lot on our agenda
yeah.
today. So let's have another question, and then we can turn it back over to Shira and Amy to wrap up.
Basically, it's just an ask, how, I guess, moving forward, because I solely agree that that catching them before they reach adulthood and helping them before they reach adulthood is not only preventative, but it's also been more beneficial to them, for their future and for their life. And I just had this conversation with my children on how important it is to ask for help. And so I think that I support the direction that we're going here. My ask is that if you see or find something legislatively that we can put our muscle behind as a county in this next legislative session that would help bolster the youth voice, that would be amazing. And because I'm all about rural equity and obviously all of the other equity that we need to seek for our children, especially for our Hispanic population and our indigenous population. And so I just very much let us know, because we are becoming more active legislatively as a county. And I really, our kids need this. And so, yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. And just a couple of things that are in the works. Our organization is putting some effort behind trying to get roving CADCs, substance use disorder counselors, to all of the districts throughout the county. It's in infancy phases. We're having conversations with the state about potential funding sources for that. We know, because we've heard directly from young people, that they want access to services in school. that's the place that makes most sense for that. There's also new legislation that requires schools to ensure that young people are getting education and understanding illicit substances and are understanding the risks of fentanyl. And we plan to partner with our schools as recovery mentors and substance use providers, because I think that those messages best come from folks with lived experience, and maybe take some pressure off of the educators, and really looking forward to partnering with them in that way. So I'm a kid person. I started my career in kid services and ran our child and family department before I sort of moved up into a clinical director role. So this is a big priority for me as well, Commissioner Bangs, and we will do all that we can. I have a lot of focus on kid substance use disorder treatment right now. And then if I can just give you a brief update on deflection, and then Amy and I can wrap up unless we're out of time.
That's
Okay.
great.
Okay. So we've already started talking a bit about M110. So House Bill 4002 is sort of what rolled back M110 and recriminalized minor possession of illicit substances. Deflection allows us the opportunity to offer sort of mandatory SUD treatment for folks rather than criminal charges. So people are having kind of the option to choose, if they're looking at charges to, comply with treatment and treatment expectations at CBH. The sheriff's office has a deflection coordinator who our team works closely with. So that sort of pathway can come either from law enforcement, or it can also come from the DA. If they want to provide that as an option to someone who is looking at charges for minor possession of illicit substances. So we hired a swing shift peer who will work from like 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. and our peers are like on call for law enforcement to reach out to us when they're out in the community and they're having these conversations with folks in the moment, so we can dispatch folks with lived experience who know what recovery is all about, so that they can have those conversations in the moment, in the field, with people while they're potentially looking at arrest or criminal charges. So we're excited about that. That started in September. We have 3 folks who are already a part of the deflection program, and feel like those numbers will continue to ramp up as word gets out and as we continue to train our law enforcement partners throughout the county.
That's great.
Questions about that? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much for the update. Appreciate it. Shira Marilla, who's the interim director for Classic Behavioral Health. And of course, congratulations, Amy, on your new position with the State Behavioral Health Initiative Director. So congratulations. We really appreciate your leadership over the years and all you've done for Clatsop County.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Historical Society lease agreement and museum expansion. And we have Mac Burns, our Executive Director for Clatsop County Historical Society, with us, and then Assistant County Manager Monica Steele. Monica.
Thank you, Chair, Board of Commissioners. So I'm going to present to you first the proposed lease agreement with the museum, and then I'll let Mac kind of share some exciting updates regarding their expansion. So currently the county is in a 15-year lease with the Historical Society for what is referred to as the Goonies Historical Jail. And so we are thankful for that partnership that we have with them. They are requesting a longer lease this go around. The current lease will expire in December of 2025. So we're here a year early, but part of that is because we want to allow the Historical Museum to have opportunities to apply for grants. And oftentimes if they're in a longer term lease agreement, then that gives a little bit more reassurances to those granting agencies. We also have made some changes in regards to the square footage. Previously, the county was utilizing the upstairs space, and we've significantly reduced the space that we are using up there to just one room, which has allowed the Historical Society to kind of expand their storage space so that way they have more opportunities for their gift shops and their inventory to be stored up there. So those two reasons are the primary reason for coming to you a year early. Not much else has changed about the lease agreement. It's still pretty much the same thing in regards to the Historical Society is responsible for the maintenance and care of the building, and a lot of the significant maintenance that might occur is based on a square footage allocation. So the county would still pay for a portion based on the square footage that we're utilizing versus what they're utilizing. And this will be coming before your board in November for formal action. And I wanted to give Mac, though, an opportunity to just kind of provide an update as to where they're at with some current fundraising efforts in regards to their museum expansion. So Mac.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much. And echoing, it's been a terrific relationship. We think it's been beneficial to both the county and to the Historical Society, and certainly to the thousands and thousands and thousands of folks that come and visit. It's been just a really good partnership, and we're so appreciative. And the county has been wonderful to work with, just top to bottom. We have grown tremendously. When we first started this 14 years ago, we were excited to get 9,000 visitors a year through the museum. Last year, we had 52,000 and some change that came through. That came from all 50 states and from about 30 to 40 foreign nations. They are coming here intentionally. The wonderful thing about this story, they're not just coming to the jail, to the Oregon Film Museum. They're going countywide. They're visiting Cannon Beach, Ecola State Park. So this is just a win for the economy, for the entire Clatsop County. It's just a really good thing. One of the reasons, and Monica mentioned, but one of the reasons that we really do want to extend this lease further than a 5 or 10 year period, there's some preservation work that really needs to be done. It's a historic structure. I'm sure you're all aware, built in 1914. It was our county jail until 1976, and then it became iconic because it's been in a couple of movies, but obviously the Goonies is the big draw. But especially around the windows, the bars are beginning to rust, and the cement around them is coming loose. And it's not a cheap fix. It's not something that we can just do in-house with our facilities manager and our carpenter. And we'd like to write some grants and try to find some funding to do that. And just always there's that question of control that a nonprofit foundation doesn't want to give to a government agency. If I have somewhat long-term control, 25 years, that's more palatable for a lot of the foundations that I've had some initial conversations with that like preservation. So it's not a promise that we know we'll get some funds, but at least this gives us the tool to go seek some funds and see what we can do. I don't have a timeline for when we'd like to do this work, sooner than later. And I don't have a real estimate for how much of this can we get done. Can we do the entire building, or one side at a time, or window by window? I'm not sure yet, but that is the ultimate goal. The other side that you asked me to speak about, the Oregon Film Museum, the numbers have just exploded. We are at capacity. My board of directors has heard me say for about 6 years in a row, we can't get any more people through that building. And then somehow we get more people through the building, but we are truly at capacity. And more importantly, we are an educational organization in such a tight space. We can't really fulfill the educational mission to the extent that we would like. The film industry in Oregon is rich. It's not just a story about the Goonies and come celebrate the Goonies. The industry started in 1909 right here in Clatsop County with a movie called The Fisherman's Bride, but it's still a vibrant industry. Movies are being made actually right today in Astoria. There's an independent film, but there's television shows have been filmed in around the state, but in Portland. And there's people in this industry that are working, and we want to talk about what it takes to make a movie. And we want some real hands-on training that kids can see that there's more to making a movie than the actor and a camera. There's seamstresses, there's costume people, there's location scouts, there's carpenters. There's all these people involved. And we've designed a new facility right across the street in the old Morris Glass building. We own the property. We acquired it very quietly about 8 or 9 years ago, anticipating this growth. We've developed a very stunning 13,000 square foot facility, 2-story. We think it's about a $10.1 million project. We've raised about $7 million at this point. We're just in the beginning stages of some permitting. We've got some asks out there. Our tipping point is really 8 million, 80%. We know it's a go at that point. And when we get to that point, then we'll have a real timeline of when we can finish this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mac. Yeah, it's exciting to hear of these plans. We appreciate your leadership at the Historical Society. You definitely need more space because there are people there all the time, and it is packed all the time. So yeah, this is certainly a worthy endeavor, and this lease would take you out through 2050, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
I see Commissioner Banks. Commissioner Banks?
I'm curious if our 70% of the TLT transient lodging tax, can those tourism dollars go to upkeep or growth or like this direction?
Yeah. Sorry, Commissioner Banks, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So
No, you're fine.
okay. Chair Aquila,
You
if
can
I
tell
might.
me no.
No, Chair Aquila, members of the board. So we have had conversations about how that 70% could be spent, and by statute is for tourism promotion and for tourist facilities. So certainly there is the opportunity, and we'll be coming back to your board and talking about the opportunity both for the Historical Society as well as for some other regional tourist facility assets. And so I had a meeting with the city managers yesterday, and we talked about that also, because right now a lot of the tourism promotion facilities dollars goes directly to the cities. And something I had mentioned, I guess, was it a week ago, when we talked about TLT, is that we approach that 70% a little bit differently and have more of a regional approach. And so it can be used for tourism facilities. Where it gets a little bit more questionable is on some of the maintenance elements to certain facilities. And so, but certainly the capital side of it is an opportunity that we'll be coming back to your board on.
Well, I realize we probably can't do like maintenance and upkeep. We're a little limited, but if we can reallocate funding so that funding from that goes to building new and the funding from building new goes over here to maintenance and care for historical buildings that our tourist population obviously is coming to. Maybe we can just, I don't know, hopefully serve as many purposes as possible, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Any further discussions, questions? All right, well, this will be coming back to us, you say, at the next meeting?
And just a standing offer, anybody who wants a tour and an in-person showing of what we're doing, I'd love to have that opportunity. So just reach out to me. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you for that invitation, Mac. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item. Thanks, Mac.
Thanks.
Next is Clatsop County 4-H Clubhouse Bill of Sale and Land Lease Agreement on page 9.
Thank you, Chair. So just a little background on this. there's a building and it's referred to as the 4-H Clubhouse, and it is on county property. And and it used to belong to the 4-H Association. Back in 2015, the ownership was transferred to the county because the 4-H club or 4-H Association was having a difficult time as far as financially being able to afford some of the maintenance and upkeep, and more specifically, the insurance requirements on the building. More recently, they are in a better financial position, and they would like to transfer ownership back to the 4-H Association of the building. The building obviously sits on county land, and so that's why it's kind of a 2-for-1 deal. You would be transferring the property of the clubhouse over to the 4-H Association, and then they would be entering into a land lease agreement with the county for the land that the building sits on. This MOU is coming to you now because this particular lease expires in January of 2025. And we would be entering in, or we're proposing to enter into a land lease agreement for the next 20 years. Similar to the situation with the Historical Society, for the 4-H Association to do some of the maintenance and upkeep of the building. They have a lot of organizations that would be willing to donate time and materials to do maintenance things such as the roof or windows or things like that. But having it be under the ownership of a government building versus a nonprofit association such as the 4-H Association. And so this would give them more opportunities to be able to do some of those maintenance without expenses to the 4-H Association. So this is something that will also be coming back before your board in November. And again, it's just entering into a land lease agreement for $1 a year. And then we would be transferring the title of the deed of the building back over to the 4-H Association. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions? Nope, this sounds like a good agreement. Appreciate your hard work on it. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is the strategic plan review, page 19, and our county manager, Don Boone.
Thank you, Chair Quayle and members of the board. I'm going to have Amanda do most of the overview for us today, but before I hand it off to her, I just wanted to just kind of reiterate, you know, what the strategic plan is, how we have approached it in its own unique way to make it as relevant as we possibly can, and also to be sensitive to the limited, you know, staff that we have to really push the strategic planning process. As your board is aware, we're all multifaceted and multi-engaged, and I think that's will continue for the foreseeable future here at the county. But fundamentally, what the goal of the strategic plan was to be able to articulate what the mission, the values, and the goals of the county are, but then have that be really articulated in a very specific way as we talk about budgets and we talk about the financial spending priorities of the county. And so we've kind of started at that, you know, 60,000 feet view, but we quickly tried to then get below the clouds and really look at what are the actionable items and how do we align those actionable items with the budget process. You know, at various times we have gone out and surveyed various interests in the community to identify projects, which is what Amanda's going to talk about a little bit today. Get your board feedback, have the board retreats, and then have a document that then reflects your priorities, the community's priorities. And so it is a multi-year plan. There's a lot of items in here that are multiple year. As your board is aware, a lot of the complex issues that we deal with, the fiscal year is really meaningless to these challenges. And so we can't compartmentalize them into a fiscal year. And so there are many that are spanning multiple strategic planning processes and multiple budgets. So we are anticipating doing a similar process to what we have done in previous years, but we're totally open, and we remain to be open to any feedback from your board about what might be the process you would feel most comfortable with. So as we go through this, if you could let us know at the end if there's any adjustments you would like us to make, we would appreciate that. And I'll go ahead and pass it off to Amanda.
Chair Kurila, members of the board, Amanda Rackenship, Clatsop County Management Policy Analyst. So this presentation, like Don mentioned, begins the annual review process for the county strategic plan. The foundational components of the current plan are expected to remain the same. However, this annual review process allows for your board to consider the more detailed aspects of carrying out this work and adjusting or adapting fiscal year priorities as needed. And we've come to learn that for many local governments, both developing and continuing to implement a structured strategic planning process such as this is not the norm. So this truly speaks to your board's persistence and dedication to this important work. Which please let me know if I'm continuing to talk on about something that's not reflected in a slide, because I know that that's happened before where they've gotten frozen. So just let me know. Feel free to jump in. And also, I can't see everyone in the screen. So if there's any hands that are raised, feel free to interrupt. So for today, I'll provide an overview of the county strategic plan, our current progress, and the activities that will be a part of this year's annual review process. First, it's important that we revisit how we define a strategic plan and its purpose. So in a nutshell, a strategic plan is a roadmap which allows the county to effectively coordinate the efforts of both elected officials and county staff. Why is that significant? Well, coordinating our efforts means effectively matching the county's priorities with the appropriate resources, or in many cases, identifying resources needed to accomplish these priorities. A plan creates a mechanism for the board to adapt to the community's changing needs, ensure transparency in doing so, and holding us accountable to this work. The county began its year-long strategic planning process in January 2020. This was a collaborative effort conducted in partnership with the Center of Public Service at Portland State University and engaged elected officials, staff, stakeholder groups, and the general public. The result is the county's current strategic plan adopted by your board in January 2021. And these next few slides are a review of those foundational components I mentioned that have continued through each of the annual review processes so far. So here's the county's vision. In a world of change and uncertainty, people trust Clatsop County to provide public services and facilities in an effective, efficient, and equitable manner. The mission: the county will identify the broad services it understands community members want and are willing to support, provide those services effectively, efficiently, equitably, within budget, and in partnership with other public, nonprofit, and private sector service providers. Our guiding values: engagement and collaboration, effectiveness and efficiency, equity, transparency, and accountability. And these are the plan's 5 focus areas. So this doesn't mean that the most important services in the county fall within these categories. Rather, the board selected these 5 focus areas based on interpretation of public interest and priorities, quality of life goals, and areas where county leadership is focused on moving initiatives forward. So in June 2022, the board adopted the first annual update to the strategic plan, establishing priorities for fiscal year 22-23. The most recent update established priorities for our current fiscal year 24-25, which was adopted by your board in August. And this is a general overview of the planning process. So during our annual review or annual planning process, the board considers adjusting or adapting fiscal year priorities to continue carrying out the plan's mission in the upcoming fiscal year. The staff, as Don mentioned, drafted an outline for the more in-depth planning process, which is referenced at the bottom of the slide, and that will establish a new strategic plan, which will entail about a 16-month planning process for that new plan. Staff originally presented this process to your board with the intent of establishing a new plan for 2026. However, in light of the important items that may be addressed in the state's upcoming long session with the legislature, this has been tentatively pushed out to a later date. The outcome of that session could significantly impact your board's strategic vision for the county, and we want to make sure that that's captured in the development of the next strategic plan. So before I move on to our current progress in implementing the plan, does anybody have any questions?
Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amanda, I've said this privately, so I'm going to raise it in public. This is not the first strategic plan that Clatsop County has ever had. Chair Hudla began it. County Manager Cole worked on it for 3 years. There was ultimately, after a change in leadership at both the staff and the board level, I would call it the evaporation of that first strategic plan. I raise the issue because I think we're on a very good track. I'm eager to continue it. I'm also aware that with transitions in personnel, that history, I just want our history to be accurate. That's what I would say, so as to avoid losing momentum, that continuing effort to both plan and execute and evaluate. All three of those goes on. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, Amanda?
Thank you, Chair Quayle and Commissioner Thompson. So these next 6 slides highlight the successes in implementing the plan's fiscal year priorities since this current plan was adopted in 2021. I am happy to go through these slides. I know it can be a lot of material, or I was just wondering if any of the commissioners wanted to speak to any of these successes. I just kind of wanted to give a moment to highlight. I'm happy to go through these slides and just highlight a few items myself, but I just wanted to give that opportunity in case there was any comments or any highlights that the commissioners wanted to make.
Any comments?
Okay.
There's certainly been a lot of successes, I will say, and I do appreciate all the hard work of the admin, county manager, and certainly the commission as well has been very supportive. So I do appreciate a lot of the things that we've achieved under this strategic plan. Commissioner Banks, you wanted to talk probably about childcare?
Always, but no, I want to just highlight that I absolutely love this process. It's probably one of my favorite things to do as a commissioner is the strategic planning. And so mainly just because we actually see things coming together, coming to fruition, many successes. And so I'm just glad that we are continuing to follow what we've started, I think 4 years ago. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Banks. All right, Amanda?
Chair Quayle, thank you, Commissioner Banks. So Chair Quayle mentioned there's been a lot of success in terms of childcare and childcare support, creating the strategic planning process, like you mentioned, Commissioner Banks. The housing dashboard, a lot of work that has gone into affordable housing initiatives and activities. The new jail that opened, Project Turnkey, one of those initiatives through the homelessness and housing focus. We've updated comprehensive plan goals, county surplus land inventory, continued work on 911 communications, that collaboration and consolidation, focus on efforts that allow for things like the SIP agreement, continuing to develop the countywide deflection program and implementing that, continuing to support the Project Turnkey shelter. So many things. I'll just continue to flip through these. Oh, here we go. In progress. Sorry, I missed that. So just some highlights. I know a lot of work has gone into transportation safety efforts. And so one I just kind of want to highlight is the developing the Astoria-Megla Bridge public awareness campaign for suicide prevention. And those efforts that are currently happening, the implementing of the new countywide deflection program, and the support that's gone into the improvements for the Evergreen Acres or the Maple LC water system. Also facilitating the regional housing land and infrastructure inventory, which Alyssa, the housing manager, has been leading in partnership with the cities, continuing to develop those final recommendations for the economic opportunity analysis that our planning manager, Jay, has been working on. And recently, the opening of the reconstructed Net Pen Pier is a really important thing that I want to make sure that we highlight. So when we're looking at what is next, so first was the strategic plan survey that went out on Wednesday, distributed to county management and representatives from a wide range of stakeholder groups, a little over 200 people, to gather feedback on external factors that will impact the county's ability to deliver services and strategic plan priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. And you'll be discussing the results of that survey at the first strategic planning work session scheduled for Wednesday, November 13th. The second work session is scheduled for December 11th, I believe, where you'll be solidifying next year's fiscal year priorities and their level of importance. So that's the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, followed by a final work session in January to solidify the actions that will be assigned to each priority to carry out that work. A proposed annual update is scheduled to become before the board towards the end of February, then taking us to the budget planning process where the board works with the budget planning committee to secure the adopted priorities to the county's budget. And of course, there's the adoption of the county's budget and implementation of both the adopted priorities for the strategic plan and the fiscal year budget. So and that concludes the strategic plan review. I want to thank you for this opportunity to present this morning, and I'm happy to answer any additional questions you may have.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amanda. Amanda Rapacek, our management and policy analyst. And it's good to be reminded of all of the accomplishments that we've had over the last year. And certainly, I'm glad you highlighted so many of things with housing and you know, we forget the progress that has been made in so many of these strategic focuses. And again, kudos to the staff, the team, the county manager's office, and to the rest of the commission for pushing on them as well. Anything else, county manager?
Chair, with the members of the board, I just want to recognize Amanda for her great work on this project. And I also want to recognize all the work of all the departments, because these are only select initiatives, and the day-to-day work of the departments and fulfilling their individual roles is always impressive. And sometimes it's important for me to at least take a couple minutes and just recognize all the day-to-day work that gets done, and my appreciation for your board's leadership and for staff that are working every day for the county.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Amanda's done a fantastic job, not just with the strategic planning, but with working with our CFM advocates group and continuing both at the state and federal level to push our agenda. So thank you, Amanda. Commissioner Bangs.
I was just curious if we could extend a formal invitation to our newest commissioner to come in for the preliminary list of priorities and affirming that list of priorities, mainly just so that he can, I mean, maybe not participate in the process, but that he can see the process. And I mean, I would hazard to say that I wouldn't mind having his feedback. But I don't know how others would feel in that situation. So those are just my thoughts. Thanks.
I certainly would be fine extending that invitation. I think he's welcome to come to any of our meetings, obviously, and observe. We'd like to have him at this meeting when we're talking about the strategic planning process. I'd love to get them oriented on it. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with asking our Commissioner-elect to participate. I'd also like to see the board move forward as quickly as possible with our board retreat, because what I'd also like to see happen is the integration of our liaison assignments with our strategic plan. I very much appreciate the work of staff. I'd love to see it highlighted and publicized in whatever way is appropriate. But I want to think about what we do as a governing body and our liaisons that reach into the outside world and bring in resources and extend out our concerns, our needs, and what we have to offer to the rest of the world. So I think it's always good to celebrate our accomplishments. It's always good to look at and what's next? How do we evolve to continue growing? Because that's what I see that makes this one live, is that we have that element of evaluation, further iterations, and further growth. Thanks all around.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments? Okay, well done. Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate the update. We'll move on to the next item, which is the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA monies, page 42, and Assistant County Manager Monica Steele.
Thank you, Chair, Board. As you all know, we come to you regularly with just some updates in regards to our ARPA funding. All of our ARPA funds have to be obligated by December 31st of 2024. They don't have to be spent but until December 31st of 2026, but they do have to be obligated. And that means that there needs to be some form of contract or letter of intent in place. It doesn't just mean that it's been budgeted for. So in your packet, we've once again provided you with that spreadsheet, that funding concept that's just kind of talked about the prior years, where the funds have gone, as well as how we have budgeted them this year and the things that we're proposing. Some of those funds have already been paid out for this fiscal year, those ongoing contracts such as with the SBDC as well as the childcare. But some other ones that we are proposing that are a little bit different for this year, but have been budgeted for is, for example, the public facility improvements in the courthouse, as well as the 800 and 820 buildings for the elevator improvements, as well as some disaster mitigation planning for the fuel station to go out at the Warrenton Sheriff's Office or jail. And then also some pre-development costs for housing. We, I believe it was a year or so ago, came before your board with a letter of intent to go to Copeland Commons, and now we're going to be obligating those dollars or contracting with them to spend those monies. And then another one, last fiscal year, your board awarded $150,000 to the fire districts throughout the county. Some of them had received a base amount, and then others, based on call volume, received some additional funds beyond that. And we're once again proposing to do something similar, but this time it would be $100,000. So those are some of the things that are a little bit different. Again, it's all reflected in your spreadsheet, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Thank you, Monica. You know, we just got done talking about strategic planning, and I can't imagine anybody has been more strategic at putting these funds to good use in their community than we have. I'm so proud of how we've been able to dispense this throughout our county and our community, and all of the great things that have come out of it. It's fantastic. Commissioner Banks.
I am curious is there any funding that has yet to be allocated, or I shouldn't say allocated, yet to be promised?
No, if you'll notice, our contingency is spent out. So So there isn't, I mean, there might be some shift in regards to something might come in under a little bit, but for the most part, everything has been, you know, again, not obligated because we're not under contract yet, but per the funding concept, relatively obligated unless there's some major, you know, some minute changes. Dawn?
Well, Chair Quillen, Commissioner Bangs, members of the board. I think that one of the things that your board could do is that, I mean, we have just offered some of these as opportunities to kind of have that end of year reconciliation of the ARPA funds. And so we've suggested $100,000 to the fire departments as part of that. If your board has another priority that you would rather see that go to, certainly that is an option too. It's just, we know that the fire agencies continue to be under a lot of stress. And so that's just a suggestion that staff is making, so.
Yeah, thank you, County Manager. Commissioner Thompson?
Well, thank you. This is how you tell the real budget nerds, because we get goosebumps when we see spreadsheets like this. This is exquisite. This is really a work of art, number one. And number two, yes, more money for fire whenever possible. So supporting those community volunteers. A ham dinner is great. That all the fire trucks came from the whole region to be outside the Cannon Beach Conference Center was fabulous. Money in hand like this, even better. So I'm absolutely in support of that. Thanks.
I agree with you, Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Bangs?
I agree with the direction with the $100,000 going to our fire districts. If any other funding, I don't know, becomes available, we may want to look at the future of our small water districts and how can we help them not fail. I think that, you know, looking across at our water districts, we've got a number of them with failing infrastructure or close to, and capacity issues. And so how can we help assist growth and capacity, and then also prevention of failure? So I think that, you know, that'll come up probably in strategic planning, but I definitely concur with Chair on how amazingly we've done spending this ARPA funding and what we've accomplished with it. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing that came from something horrible, which was the COVID pandemic. So every year, I think I say the same thing, and we have some fabulous positives that came from it. So anyhow, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, sir. In regard to the water districts, that's such a complicated issue. The governance of those water districts is really something that can't be stepped over, because even if there is an adequate source of water, even if there is an adequate system of pipes, even if the pumps and valves are in place, if the governance of the board isn't up to snuff, then everything falls apart in my experience. So I just urge us to consider the complexity of the issue as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Any other comments, questions? Not seeing any. We'll go ahead and move on then to our next item, which is the Westport Sewer American Rescue Plan Act update. I know we have our county engineer, Dean Kiernan, joining us, so I'll turn it over to Dean.
All right, good morning, Chair Quillen, members of the board. As a quick summary, our original plan for the latest ARPA funds was going to be for new UV units, and that was partly because of permit violations, but also because of the stress on our operator just running the plant. It just was not running very smooth. And after the cleanings out there with the septic pumping and operational changes, the plant is running a lot better right now, though we're using a lot of pH chemicals, but it's really only resulting in maybe 2,500, 3,000 more a year for pH chemicals, but at least it's running smooth. So now we'd like to use the ARPA funds as well as a community development block grant as an opportunity to fix all of our issues out there. Updates, we just currently put out notifications for the income study. And I also think we will be getting a grant from the Ford Family Foundation to cover the cost of that, which is about $10,000. Our operator found a program to provide a free auto sampler and flow meter, and that was $15,000 worth of equipment. And we've installed the auto sampler already at the plant. Our newest estimate for what we think the improvements are going to cost are roughly 1.8 million. And then we're going to put out an RFP for a design engineer this month, and we can narrow those costs down once we get them on board. Any questions?
Any questions for our county engineer? It's great news to hear that things are running smoothly.
Yeah, he's been a savior for us. He's doing something, so he's running the plant. It can run at about double the capacity that we need it to. And so he started running it at that capacity, even though we don't need it to, but it's cleaning the water up really good. So
Great. That's great. So we'd be going out for a community development block grant for 2.5 million. Is that what the estimate is?
I think we've kind of narrowed it down, and I think it's going to be more around 2 million.
About 2 million?
Yeah.
Commissioner Webb?
Thank you. I'm sorry. I should apologize for having been so late to the meeting. I couldn't get on the meeting at home, which is something, so I'm in the county offices now. And I don't quite know, Dean, whether this is a question for you or not, but did I understand correctly that you were saying that actually right now in Westport, we are going to have the capacity for greater usage, for increased?
Well, it was actually designed for more usage for future expansion. And what's ran before, we run it at half capacity. That's what they've done since the beginning. So, but by experimentation and running, they're called pods. There's 4 rows of them. By running more of the pods, he's found that it's resulting in better treatment. It just takes more chemicals to balance out.
What does this imply? And I don't know whom to ask this question. What does this imply for possible expansion in Westport? More housing?
Well, maybe the planning updates might allow for that. So.
Okay, because this is something I guess this plant has been, well, not in trouble, but we've had a lot of issues with it, at least in the last 6 years that I know about. And it would be awfully exciting if we could open up some more land for development, given that. What is the water source for Westport? Is there a water district out there? And how big is it? Is it the existing? Westport is not a city, is it? No, it's not a city. It's just an area of the county, right? So it's so anyway, I think it's something that for us to keep in mind, that at least because infrastructure is such a huge impediment for us for building more housing, that if we have a place that we have excess or at least growable infrastructure, then I think that's a pretty exciting thing to kind of keep in our back of our minds. Thank you, Dean.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Webb.
Thank you.
Commissioner Banks?
Westport's water used to be a dammed system that they used to struggle with in prior years with cleanliness and flavor, so on and so forth. The Department of Forestry worked with Westport Water, and so now they get their water off of state lands. And so it was an agreement between the Department of Forestry and Westport Water. Obviously, with all of our water concerns across the county, we would want to make sure that the water district has the capacity to support growth. But anyhow, we would love to be able to develop in East County. We need the assistance of potentially the state in regards to our current zoning, which is the RA1, but we cannot build at RA1. So, yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, but yes, we would love to be able to develop in East County.
Thank you, Commissioner Bangs. Any other comments, questions? Anything else you'd like to add, Dean?
I think I'm good.
All right. Great. Well, thank you. We made it through all of our items on the agenda in good time. So appreciate everybody's participation and appreciate all of the reports and updates and the good work that we're doing. So if we don't have anything else, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting and see you all next week. Thanks.